And while development like that is obviously not ideal, it is depressingly consistent with our approach to water out west, because it has been a history of denial and wishful thinking, especially around the Colorado River, that is now crashing into harsh reality. So tonight, let's take a look at our water shortage, how it's been impacted by the choices that we've made, and what we can do about it. And let's start with how the Colorado River is managed, because a lot of the problems that we're seeing today can be traced back to decisions that were made a century ago.
This precious resource is allocated based on a 1922 agreement called the Colorado River Compact. Once the river basin states agreed on their fair shares, they each established a seniority system. First in time, first in right.
It's true, 7 states got together and carved up all the water in the river, essentially letting people lay claim to it through a complex system of calling dibs. And look, I've got no problem with dibs in principle. It's a great way to figure out who gets the last slice of pizza, or the pink starbursts, or the cutest baby at the hospital. I don't care if he gave birth to her, I call dibs, that one is mine. But it is a weird way to divide up something as important as water. The Colorado River Compact serves as the foundation for what is known as the Law of the River, which sounds less like a set of water management agreements and more like an animated buddy cop movie starring a trout and a bear voiced by 2 actors who are both wildly anti-Semitic. But there were a few major problems with how the compact was set up right from the start. First, Mexico wasn't included, and even though it is today, the river essentially runs dry by the time it gets across the border. And the compact also didn't specifically address the water needs of the more than 24 Native American tribes who depend on the river, which is pretty shitty, especially as those tribes do have the most senior water rights, given that they were, in a very real sense, here first. They have the ultimate dibs. But even so, tribes have had to struggle to get those water rights actually quantified on paper, and even then, to get the infrastructure they need in order to access it. And for many tribes, those fights are still happening. But it wasn't just about who the compact left out. Another key flaw was that right from the start, it allocated more water than actually existed. Water supplies are measured in acre-feet, and the compact divided up rights to 15 million acre-feet of water, even though the river only carries around 12 to 13 million. And to be clear, they knew this was a problem at the time. The explorer and scientist John Wesley Powell warned in 1893 there is not sufficient water to supply these lands. But the bullshit math never stopped. Just 10 years ago, in a major study by the federal government, states forced the modelers to add so-called magic water, extra water that existed in the computer model only, which is just absurd. And not only because magic water sounds like a euphemism for urine used exclusively by Bjork. It's me, Bjork. Sometimes I have to make some magic water, hee. But it takes forever to get out of this swan. And I do get why states might want to pretend there is more water than there is, because they want continued growth and economic development, and nobody wants to be the bad guy pointing out the fundamental problem with that. Just listen to a reporter pressing a representative of Southern Nevada's water authority on how they can justify growth in the face of looming water scarcity.
But something's got to give. I mean, you can't just keep expanding the population size with a dwindling water supply. I mean, that's just not sustainable.
That's just human nature. I mean, that really kind of goes back to manifest destiny. It goes back to sort of this American dream. You're going to continue to see people moving to the desert Southwest. So from our perspective as water managers, it is up to us to make sure that we're able to meet the demands of our community, regardless of what our numbers might be.
Okay, so there is a lot there, including the phrase manifest destiny, which, as we all know, only has good connotations. You know, like a self-published book about my struggle, or I really want to impress Jodie Foster, or hello, my name is Ted Cruz. No red flags there at all. But again, you can understand why he feels the need to respond that way. Nobody wants to be the one having to deliver bad news. But the immovable fact is, cities in the desert can't grow without limits, and hard sacrifices will have to be made. Which brings us to another fundamental tension here, specifically between farmers and cities. Because farmers and ranchers were out west much earlier than most American cities were established, meaning they have senior water rights, and they use them. Agriculture uses about 70% of the Colorado River water. And look,